What's going on, guys? Welcome back to W.D.Y.D. CSP. What do you do as a central sterile processor? Alright, guys, in front of me today I have some arthroscopic instruments. Alright, not ortho with an O, arthro, used for joint surgeries. And many of these instruments are used to bite into cartilage, ligaments, and tendons. So a lot of biting action taking place here, except for a few graspers here. And now what I noticed about this specific brand is that there is this little like depression button here. Now I played with this before, but I've never seen it in the IFU where that is to be removed. It actually removes the handle off of the device, but when removing it, I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to take this handle off completely, and I'm curious as to and I haven't been able to find this in an IFU because they have a general IFU for this device, for this specific company. But when you take this handle off, that little depression button, I'm trying to do it slowly because that little depression button, now there's the actual device, right? And then the handle separate, but that little depression button has this little spring, right? There's a little tiny little spring right there. And then the actual button itself. Now, I would not recommend, if it is an IFU, to remove this handle. I would not recommend anyone do this in decontamination because let me tell you, it was hard to do this barehanded. I can imagine with utility gloves back in decon how hard that would be to do. And then putting it back on in the prep and pack side isn't that difficult. You just got to make sure that when you place it in and you catch that little latch right there, you have to depress the spring and the button in at the same time and kind of wiggle it in. You just got to make sure the handle catches the back of the jaw, and the jaw has to be in the open position. Like I did it and I missed the open position, so I gotta force this jaw open real quick, back that handle out, and then pop it back in so it catches. And then once it catches, there you go, open and close. Now I don't know if that little button there is for the repair company, or is it for us in the technical field? If any of you guys know, comment on the video, let me know what is that little button there for. But anyway, arthroscopic instruments, we want to make sure that when we're assembling, is that we're inspecting all our instrumentation thoroughly. Also, because they're biting instruments, you want to make sure that they do their duty in biting and cutting through that cartilage. There are several in this set. There are several sheaths and obturators that go into the set. And again, here's these flush ports that come apart. Should be taken apart in decontamination and cleaned thoroughly, so you can run a brush in there, brush the actual stop valve, and then reassemble it or place it in a small containment device and then reassembled over in the prep and pack area. A little muscle hook or a little skin hook, nerve hook, whatever you want to call it, is actually to hook the tendon and the actual meniscus, that's what we call that, are in the joints. Again, I stated this in another video, with devices that can be put together, be able to know and identify what it looks like when it's assembled and disassembled. It's really important because it might have got missed in decon. Come over to prep and pack side, you're looking for the item. It should have been 2, it looks like 1, but you want to know what that device looks like assembled and disassembled. Now, depending on your repair company, they offer little kits to help you test your instruments. This one's one for arthroscopic punches, but there is a note that this test has to be approved by the original equipment manufacturer. It is a little piece of leather here. I wasn't able, the manufacturer wasn't able to get back to me. But this is how I've always tested our arthroscopic punches. I do actually cut into the piece of leather, make sure it's sharp. If I didn't have the leather available, then I would use 2 index cards to cut through, because again, cartilage is tougher than bone. Not bone, I'm sorry. Cartilage is right there, and tendons are pretty tough. So just like you would for a rondure, I use the index card. I use double the index card because the biting force on these it's pretty sharp. They are pretty sharp, so I do use 2 index cards. But again, when you're biting through this material, make sure that you are collecting the material. Now that one flew across the room. If again, be careful guys, because this can fall into a set, and again, it's justifiable to dismiss the set if they see this foreign body in there. They don't know what this is. We know what it is, but our end users do not. So for all the biters, it is important to go ahead and bite down. You don't want it snagging. You just want to catch the corners again. You don't want to do really big bites here. Okay, if it snags or it doesn't cut clean, then that device should be sent out for repair, right? Okay, again, get those little pieces out of there. Now, you see me tapping it on the table. Ideally, you should have like a little picking tool to be able to pick those shavings or those pieces of testing material out of the jaw. Much better than tapping it on the table and possibly bending or damaging the tip there, right? Again, this is all I had available to me. I didn't have anything to pick it off and usually it comes out nice and smooth, right? It doesn't always stick, but there's a possibility. If you test rondures that get caught in the jaw, trying to get that little piece of cardboard out of the jaw can be pain-forsaken, right? So go ahead, take that again. That one flew across. I felt it. Just make sure you're finding the pieces that you're testing, right? Okay. There's a little piece that flew across. Getting it off, throw it in the trash can, right? Take your time, guys. This is part of the testing process, right? Function testing, soil testing. Of course, the soil testing is the first. We look through that. Okay, now what I do is once I test my material is I use my lighted magnification to look at that jaw to make sure that there's no little linting. I mean, this piece of leather, so little pieces of leather that may be left behind. I use a moistened towel or liner, and I wipe off the tip of the jaw there. Again, this is testing. There's no need to send this instrument back to decontamination to do the cleaning process all over again, because again, if you do, then you have to do the testing process all over again, because something could have happened between decon and prep and pack that may have damaged that instrument. It could have been excessive banging in there. Whatever that may be, your testing should be done in prep and pack prior to sterilization. Okay, so I highly recommend that you inspect that jaw, make sure that it's clean. Now this one here, when I was inspecting, I felt that the jaws or the opening and closing was a little bit stiff. So I'm lubricating with some instrument milk there. You want to go ahead and spray the areas that manipulate and open and close. Manipulate it a couple times until it's nice and smooth, and then wipe off the excess. Okay, now you don't want to do a wipe, you just want to blot it, okay, because if you wipe it off, then you're defeating the purpose, right? Okay, again, inspecting for cleanliness of that jaw. Again, the visual clue of the instrument, you want to look at the instrument in whole to make sure that it's clean. Okay, but I can't stress enough how many times I personally have tested instruments and I have placed it into a set, and then when I gave it a second look, I'm like, oh wow, there was tested material left on the scissor, or I left a piece of cardboard on a rondure or a kerosene, or I see a little shaving off of XYZ. Always, always, guys, when you test your instruments, make sure that you don't leave no residual behind. Okay, this was another instrument that I felt was sticking a little bit, and even though we have the lubrication cycles in our washer disinfectors, again, that's a mass amount of instruments, okay? And they're together. They can cause some shadowing. Something might have been missed. So it's pretty good as long as the IFU supports it to go ahead and lubricate the instrument over in the prep and pack side with the lubrication that is recommended. This instrumentation's IFU did recommend and suggest that you lubricate the instrumentation if needed. All right. So again, checking those jaws to make sure that they're nice and sharp, checking for cleanliness, and again, testing material. Make sure you get that off. Now, if I was assembling this by the count sheet, I definitely want to look at the item number and make sure that the item number is matched, because again, these aren't common instruments, right? They're common as do you see them all the time, but common in that you might not know the exact name of it. You just might know it as a left biter, upward biter, downward biters, or some kind of crazy little name, scorpion, passer, things of that nature. But if you're not very familiar by sight of the instrumentation, of course, you definitely want to go by the manufacturer's ID number or item number. Okay, so with every instrument, you want to inspect for cleanliness, for any kind of defects, any sharp edges, any burrs. For items that are cannulated, we're going to head over to our Boroscope, because guess what? My Boroscopes are back in business. All right, so here we go with our Boroscope here. We're going to light it up. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and go down our channel here. Okay, and looking for cleanliness. Okay, so everywhere where the Boroscope is actually, this is down the flush ports, and you have to know what you're looking for when you're looking down an item. Okay, so you have to remember when they assemble items, they do some welding, tack welding, gluing, whatever that is, and those points are points that you have to look at and be like, okay, is that soil or is that caused by the welding, right? And I can show you a different instrument, like right there. This is a weld point. That's not rust. That's not bioburden. That is a weld point where the actual instrument meets with another part of the instrument. And then this discolorization here is actually another part of the instrument where, again, heat was applied to do the welding, so it's going to cause some discolorization inside of the item. So you have to be aware of what you're looking at when you look down cannulated items with a Boroscope that magnifies the intensity, because it's going to look completely different than what you normally see or can look at with the naked eye, right? So right there, I explained that after I take my Boroscope out, I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down and, store it correctly. Now, a word on the tray. All right, so solid side tray. I hope that they changed this design a little bit better, but I do like that the tray for these instruments are completely metal with a perforated bottom. Issue there is that the bottom mesh is tack welded and it can come apart. You see how it's separating from the frame right there. So it's almost time to replace this. It is time to replace this container. They can get beat up pretty bad, but I do like that it's completely metal. So it is compatible with the ultrasonic, aside from the solid sides. Now the solid sides, again, I still think that this container can be placed in the ultrasonic and it will effectively clean your instrumentation without compromising the cavitation process. Because again, soil is going to drop to the bottom. It's not going to disperse to the side. It's dropping to the bottom of the tank. The flushing is from top to bottom. So you're going to get that cleanliness still. Metal on metal contact is going to ensure that the vibration action, which is the cavitation, the bubbles imploding, causes a vibration action that will remove the soil from those little hard to reach areas. If there was silicone or any kind of coating in this tray, then that would seriously impede the cavitation process. But I hope they do redesign this tray where they make it perforated along the sides as well, and the bottom. I think it would be a lot nicer, a lot friendlier for when it's placed in the ultrasonic and even the washer. Even though, again, the washing action impingement is from top to bottom, not left to right. But it would be nice to have perforations all the way around. All right, so these instruments sit really nicely in here. They just, the handle sits in the little slot, and then it is supported by the shaft of the instrument on its little place right there. There's really no place for the cannulated instruments. Again, those are extras that are placed into the set to make it a set. But the actual graspers and cutters arrange really nicely. If you wanted to arrange it by the count sheet, where the first instrument is on the left hand side and then followed through to the right, it would be easier on the end users, even though they have their own little specific naming for instruments and can identify them differently than we do in SPD. All right, so there it goes, all nice and organized. There is a top that goes to this, a solid top that goes on this tray, again, that I wish would change design to perforated top. But the tops always get lost and beat up and bent. So for this tray here, if I'm wrapping it, I'm going to make sure that I wrap the whole tray, put my corner protectors in the top and the bottom, because those flaps on the side are pretty sharp and they can actually rip a hole in your liner if you're not careful with the handling. And of course, that is the subject of holes in the wrapper, is the handling portion of the tray. So nice and neat in here. The wrapping of this tray is pretty simple. Just making sure that you protect it and place it, use the correct size wrapper here. And unfortunately, I don't have the lid to show you how it slides on there, because again, we lose these lids like crazy. And that's it, guys. These are arthroscopic instruments, the inspection and testing of each one. How do you guys test your instruments? All right, guys, as always, stay true to yourselves, keep it 100, continue educating yourself, and until next time, peace.